You're watching Inside Utah Politics.
Time now to dig deeper into some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have Representative Carol Spackman-Moss and Salt Lake Tribune editorial writer Michelle Quist. Great to have both of you here. Thanks so much for being with us.
Nice to be here.
Let's start off with the compromise bill, and I want to focus with you on the lawsuit element of that. It was filed during the week. Michelle, put your attorney hat on. What type of success could this lawsuit possibly have, if any?
I don't think there's actually a lot of merit to it. I think it's a PR move. It's a good PR move, but I still think it's a PR move. The compromise didn't really change or alter the purpose of of Prop 2. Medical marijuana is still available and is available now, and it just tweaked with it. And I think the legislature legally and constitutionally can do that.
One of the things the lawsuit mentions specifically is that involvement with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints weakened the voice of the voter. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it did. It did, no question. They had been polling before that, and it was much higher, or at least it was some higher, and then it dropped. And so it clearly had an effect. I think that's what the backlash, a lot of it is related to that. They felt like separation of church and state. I've gotten endless emails and read things on social media about that kind of resentment.
Talk about the process from your perspective, because the church certainly was involved, but lots of other groups were as well. The overall process of drafting this compromise bill, are you for or against how it played out? Well,
the churches in general are allowed to be active in subject matters and in initiatives. They can't endorse candidates. So it was okay that the church was involved. I do think that they waited too long. They sat back while the whole process played out, and then once it seemed that all the voters had made up their mind, they were like, well, wait, we don't like it. And then everyone, kind of had a, well, do I follow you or do I follow what I was thinking before? And that just gives a bad taste in your mouth. It really does.
Your thoughts on the process?
Well, they didn't involve Democrats, so that from the outset, that made us unhappy. We had a right to weigh in as well.
And you ended up voting no on it.
Right.
Explain why.
Well, I didn't like the fact that they announced before the vote even came in, we're going to change this. It hadn't even passed. That's the thing that bothered me and a lot of people. It passed in my district by high numbers. So, I was representing my constituents who felt like how they don't understand how you can vote for something that then goes into law. And then I understand it because we change things about laws all the time. Anything that's in statute, you can amend it, change it, add to it. But it was so energized the public to be involved in that process that I've been really not surprised, but a little bit surprised at how angry an outcry there is in the public.
Well, and Proposition 2 brought more people to the polls than anything else on the ballot.
I think most people understood that there would be tweaks later, and in fact wanted tweaks. I was supporting medical marijuana, knowing that the legislature would, tweak it and make sure it works, as we see what's good and bad. But 2 days after it goes into effect is just not a good look. It's just not.
No, because it seems all pre-planned, and over I read people saying, why did we vote? Why did it even matter? And and that's a bad thing. We had a huge voter turnout, and I don't want to see people turned away, particularly young people, turn away from the process, and because we tell them all the time, your vote matters, and they don't feel that way.
At the end of the day, in your opinion, do we have a stronger medical marijuana policy now with the compromise bill than we would have had with Proposition 2?
Well, I think that it limits access. There are some things I really think are problematic. People in rural areas are going to find it very difficult. They'll have to travel a long distance. I don't like the limitation on doctors and how many patients they can have. Nor do I like the fact that they took a lot of categories out. Autoimmune disorders are huge, and something a lot of my family members have, and I'm very disappointed in that they'll have to go before a board.
Your thoughts?
I think we have a better law. I think the compromise was able to draw from other states that had seen things that worked and didn't work. I like that nurse practitioners can give a prescription for it. Yeah.
And PAs, that was an important addition, but I have no doubt it'll change along the way.
Yeah. It will, kind of like other things. As we learn and see what works, it will be your job again to modify and amend. Let's move on to the SB54 lawsuit. The Supreme Court of the United States asking the state of Utah to weigh in on the GOP's lawsuit over SB54. Again, your attorney hat on. What does that mean?
It's a big deal. So originally what happened was, you know, the GOP appealed to the Supreme Court. They asked for a grant of certiorari, and the lieutenant governor decided not to respond. And that's one of the options of, you know, of a state or another party, an opposing party. They can say, you know, we're just going to wait and see what happens. And in this case, what happened was the court said, you know, we want to hear from you why we should or should not grant the certiorari. They only need 4 justices to grant certiorari. So, you know, with the GOP's case being so conservative and the court, you know, kind of heading that way, it's looking a little more possible at this point.
Taking a larger look at this and the impact that it's having on politics here in the state of Utah, this internal fight within the Republican Party. As a Democrat, how are you viewing that?
Good for Democrats, bad for Republicans, and I think you mentioned that in your piece. It'll further diminish the Republican Party because a lot of those people that are involved in the lawsuit who were formerly in the legislature, they're not there anymore for a reason. Their views were more extreme than even the mainstream Republicans. So I think it's a very negative thing for the Republican Party.
Well, we lost a seat. You know, a lot of these
you
leaders.
You lost a seat. You know firsthand how rough the night was for Republicans in Salt Lake County. And they made gains in the State House as well. Is that reflective of this fight?
Oh, I think so. If party leadership is you know, focusing on internal, you know, things like that as opposed to electing Republicans, then we're going to elect fewer Republicans. And that's what happened.
Okay, during the week we found out that incoming speaker, Brad Wilson, assigned one of your colleagues, a House Democrat, to a very prominent position within a committee. Surprise. What were your thoughts on that?
Surprise. I wish he'd do more of it.
But what about the fact he took that step and did it anyway when I can't recall that happening?
I can't either.
So what does that signal?
Well, I don't know. I can't read his thoughts, but I hope that maybe he'll consider having other Democrats as vice chairs. I mean, certainly many of us, including myself, have been in a long time. We know the process. We know the issues very well.
Michelle, as a Republican, do you look at that and say, well, why are you giving that type of power to a Democrat?
I don't. I thought it was a great move. I think people, Utahns, want to see the legislature working together. I would love to see Representative Wilson, Speaker Wilson, involve more Republican women. You know, the leadership are all men, and we already know that you know, women in the Democrat Party are strong leaders. They, you know, they get respect. I want to see Republican women get respect.
Okay, and so we just have a few, go ahead. We have a few seconds left.
Our leadership team has 3 women and 1 man, and out of 16 Democrats, 12 are women. So I think, you know, we have more women in the Democratic caucus than the entire Republican.
All right, one last word.
I hope it goes further. It bodes well. I hope it goes further.
All right. Great discussion. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate having both of you.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.